1045 The Team, your home for New York sports, and your home for our boy Marc Kestecher, Gilliland native. You're going to be on the call. Actually, what are you guys now? I know you're doing Warriors Cavs. How do we hear that beautiful voice of Marc Kestecher?
Well, Warriors Cavs and Bulls and Spurs are going to be the doubleheader for ESPN radio. So if you're driving around Christmas Day, you can get us obviously on your station, on the app, on the satellite. We're everywhere, about 1:30 Eastern time.
All right, so we're gonna get a little deeper into that game in a second, but let's start with the game that you guys aren't on. And you and I joke about the Knicks once in a while. They play the Celtics at noon on Christmas Day. What do you make of this Knicks team so far?
Well, I had them opening day in Cleveland, and that probably isn't fair to judge anybody when you see them for the first time. And Derrick Rose missed the entire preseason, and it wasn't a great game for the Knicks. But I mean, obviously they have some pieces, and they've got some veteran pieces, and now it's just a matter of them kind of finding their way and getting it together. I think you have to be hopeful on back-to-back wins. The spotlight will be on them again on Christmas Day on the ESPN game against the Celtics, who themselves, like the Knicks, have kind of navigated around 500 through these first couple months of the season. Look, hey, the East, you're going to be able to get in probably with 41 wins, maybe 42. I think everyone should be right around 500 in those top 8, and I think the Knicks and obviously the Celtics will be part of that discussion. Just a matter of, and we've said it since day one for the Knicks, got to have the health, and at some point they're going to have to start playing some defense. I think that's the thing we talked about on opening day, and I haven't really seen that improve since.
Yeah, and it's almost trying to find an identity for this team. Can they stay healthy? Can they play defense? I've always been questioning if we're not going to see the real Knicks team until mid-January. Is that fair to say, just because of all the different variables on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair game. I mean, look, at this point, I think you can get away with trying to figure out the identity by the All-Star break. I think the East is if you can play 500 basketball, and that's not the goal, but if you can play 500 basketball, you're probably going to get into the postseason. So it's just a matter of finally, putting things together. The schedule's not going to be easy. I mean, they're going to be playing some of these Western Conference teams. They got a game against Houston on New Year's Eve, and then moving it into January. But the sooner the better. And look, we're not looking long down the road here. This is a kind of a win now. I don't know if there's a piece out there that makes them better. It's just a matter of, I think, really it's health. And it's figuring out how they're going to play under Jeff Hornacek. I think this was a big question mark coming into the season. Was he's not really a Phil Jackson kind of coach, yet he's the guy, and he's trying to figure it out. So I think there's still time. But if you're looking down the road, they're going to face a Cleveland, a Toronto, maybe a Boston. This could be a first round preview to the playoffs. Is it winnable? I don't know.
Kesty, right here on 1045 The Team, our very own Gilliland native, going to be part of the NBA broadcast, Cavs Warriors. Now, since you kind of echo most of our sentiments on the Knicks, that we really don't know what they are, but we're not ready to pencil them into anything exactly. Let's move on to the real matchup. Cavs Warriors. Are LeBron's Cavs actually better than the Warriors right now?
Well, it depends how you define it. I mean, if right now is without J.R. Smith, because he's going to miss the next month of action, and the Warriors adding Kevin Durant, and I'm assuming Draymond Green will be back by Sunday after he left the team for the birth of his son early yesterday. It's hard for me to say that the Cavaliers are better than the Warriors. I'm still kind of stunned that Cleveland won the championship, not because I didn't think they were better than Golden State. I just didn't think anybody could come back from down 3-1 in a championship series, especially with 2 of those 3 games on the road, as it was for Cleveland. The one thing you do check into Cleveland's column, though, is they have kind of figured it out. They figured it out at the second half of last year. They figured it out in the postseason, and they kept those core. They kept that core of guys where Golden State kind of reshaped themselves, not so much Kevin Durant, but with the bench, and I think the Warriors are just starting to get into gear with some of these new guys and new rotations. But when I look at it on paper, I still feel like the Warriors are the better team.
I look at the Golden State Warriors sometimes, and maybe it's full-on East Coast bias by me, but these nationally televised games that are in front of the national audience on the East Coast, that the Warriors go out and say, we have to step up more so than ever so we get the attention we deserve. Does it ever feel like that when you're watching that team play?
You know, the thing I watch, look, I mean, first of all, I'm kind of a junkie, like probably you guys are too. I mean, I'm going to bed at 1:15 on these late TNT doubleheaders because I like watching the West Coast stuff. You know, watching Clippers San Antonio last night. You know, I want to get a good feel for those teams, and I just really enjoy watching how the Warriors play, and very fascinated to see how they have, you know, trying to not miss a beat, infuse Kevin Durant and everybody else. But yeah, I think, you know, for much of the East Coast, you know, there is that bias. You're not going to really see them get a good feel for them until you start seeing games like Christmas Day that are played at 2:30 in the afternoon, or during the playoffs, you know, when games might start at 8 o'clock. But I don't get the sense that they care. Maybe the fans do, but I don't get the sense that they care at all. And in fact, it would make sense after being in the finals for the last 2 years. You almost want to fast forward. You want to play your best basketball, and you want to be able to get into a good rhythm, but you almost want to say, here's where we left off last year, and nothing short of winning the championship is what we care about.
Marc Kestecher with us right here on 104.5, the Team ESPN Radio. The Christmas Day broadcast that you will hear will be a big part of it. Golden State and Cleveland, the one tipping that thing all off for us. Kesty, we got Gaz over here. He bleeds orange for Syracuse, and he's been furious about the excerpts we've heard from Furious George Karl talking about Carmelo Anthony.
Let me at him.
When you hear those kind of quotes, like getting rid of him was a relief, like popping a blister, stuff like that. Is it just George Karl selling a book, or is there a deeper hatred that we just were unaware of?
I can't imagine. Look, I'm in a tough spot, too, because as a Syracuse guy, you know, Carmelo should never have to pay for a meal ever anywhere around an SU alum. And yet my first job in Albany was with the Patroons with George Karl. And, you know, he's such an important guy to me as far as, you know, helping shape my career. So, look, anytime you put out a book, and if you want it to be a book that sells, there's going to have to be some dirt. And I don't know if we saw all the dirt or if it's an entire book of dirty laundry. It's unfortunate, you know, and look, guys change, not for George, but for the players that he was talking about. I mean, Carmelo Anthony's a totally different human being, I think, now than he was then. Not to say that he was a bad guy, but he was a young guy. I'm just not a big person of throwing any dirty laundry out there. I just don't think it's necessary, and it's unfortunate, but, you know, if it was to sell a book, it certainly got the attention of everybody yesterday and leading up to the time whenever it comes out.
Just stepping away now from the Knicks and the teams that are in action on the ESPN broadcast, and I just have to ask a question about Russell Westbrook. I'm watching this guy play, and I'm trying to think, well, he reminds me of... And then there's nothing. I mean, the guy's averaging a triple-double right now. How historic is his season, and can he keep this pace up?
Yeah, that's the big question. I mean, look, whenever we see a guy averaging a triple-double this late in the season... you know, you're going to think of Oscar Robertson, but I'm not old enough to have watched him play. You guys aren't old enough, and there's no video out there. It's not like, you know, old-time baseball where you see Babe Ruth crush a home run and, you know, with those kind of stilty legs running around, hopping around the bases. We don't see that, you know. But people I've worked with who lived through that generation tell you, you know, that's what this reminds them of. And then it just reminds you of the greatness of the Big O, that he could do that for 82 games in a full season and average a triple-double. It's almost hard to imagine that he can do it, but if there was any guy that could, I mean, he's largely remained healthy. I know he had some injuries a few years ago that basically lopped off his career, but, you know, he's in fabulous shape. He's playing on a team where his fellow superstar departed, and so they're looking to him, and he's willing to take it. The question is, you know, can it hold up over the course of this season and then, you know, into the playoffs if they get there? But it's remarkable what he's been able to do so far. We all kind of thought this is what could happen. We just didn't know if he had the stamina to do it.
Marc Kestecher, Gilderland Zone, doing the NBA coverage right here on ESPN Radio for Christmas Day. What's your holiday schedule, Kesty? Like, do you actually get to have a holiday, or is it all basketball?
Well, I'd say, since I came on board at ESPN, probably by my second or third year, I got involved in our NBA broadcasts, and so I have worked, I think, every Christmas Day since 2001. Wow. When I was in studio, at least you could enjoy some family time and then, head off to work. And then for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been away. I did have a Knicks game. Remember the season that started late because of the lockout? It opened on Christmas Day. It was actually Knicks and Celtics, as I recall, at the Garden. So that was, at least that was drivable. But you know what? Labor of love. No one's complaining. I'll get a little time. In fact, I'll be in Albany by the 26th to meet up with my family. My wife's family still lives in the capital region, so I'll be tooling around 90 and 87 before long, and I'll pretend Christmas Day is the 26th.
Well, if you get an open moment, we'd love to buy you a cocktail.
I thought you were going to offer me like 18 holes or something. I was like, come on, let's go. Golfing weather out there, isn't it?
We'd have to clear the course. There's a little bit of snow on the ground, but I'm not against it.
We have interns.
We haven't done before.
We have interns. God's going to send them out with brooms.
We'll just cross-country ski. It'll be good.
Kesty, the only man who works more than him on Christmas is Santa. We appreciate you, brother.
We'll talk to you guys soon. Good being on with you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.